whether it's around renewable energy, whether it's around sustainable food systems, whether it's around baby snugglies, whether it's around the best bicycle in the world. It doesn't make any difference. So I see this as a way to produce lots of jobs, lots of capital, long-term, and all over the state. And from an appropriator's perspective, it doesn't really cost us a lot of money. You can take money that we are already spending in economic development and hire several folks that would be the Office of Innovation and Intellectual Property, and their job is to educate the other people in the state. I think ultimately what we would need to have would be a process for being able to have ideas that have been vetted and say, this really looks like it's an idea that could turn into a business. To give grants to those folks to help them get through that process that they need to get through to turn their idea into something that is a business. I think it also, in this world of global markets and change, what's really appealing to me about this is how we grow Vermont businesses. And these are the businesses that are going to stay here in Vermont, keep their energy and their assets here in Vermont. And that's something we're seeing, and you always worry about with large businesses where the decisions are made far away. And the plant may be doing well, the jobs may be doing well here in Vermont, but if the headquarters in Arizona says, well, we know you're doing well and making money, but we want to consolidate you with someone in Alaska, that's what they're going to do. And we don't have any control over it. So for me, looking forward, it's being able to create jobs that will stay in this state, but also that we grow all over the state. You know, and traveling around the state, hear a lot of complaining about everything happens in Chittenden County, and, you know, how come nothing happens in the rest of the state? Well, this is an idea that you can, we've got innovators, trust me, I have learned all over this state. So I think I think that this really is the future of long-term job growth in this state, because all of the jobs that can come from all of the things that we're trying to do. For the rest of the points, I don't feel like I have to go, you can read. The last one, and that I think is, and again, hearing all over the state, the single sector of our economy that's been hit the hardest is building. And that, again, the construction industry all over this country has really been hit hard. It's hard to find out what the unemployment rate is because a lot of them are private contractors, so they aren't eligible for unemployment, so they aren't showing up statistically. But talking with all kinds of contractors all over the state, I think it's probably pretty safe to say that they have run in the 25 to 30% range of unemployment. Anytime we talk about job growth in this state, one of the issues that folks come back to is a lack of affordable housing. So as governor, what I would do, I would propose that for the next 2 years, we borrow an additional $15 million and we give it to housing and conservation. The housing and conservation folks take the dollars that they already get from the state, and through their great programs, they would take $15 million and they easily turn it into $60 million that they are spending. 2 years of that, I think, would have the impact of getting back to work a lot of our contractors that are unemployed or very underemployed right now. Of course, all that money is spent here in Vermont, and it addresses a fundamental issue that we have about lack of access to affordable housing all over the state. So I think if we take these ideas and we put them together, and as you'll see, where there's money involved, I've told you how much money I think needs to be involved, we can really get the Vermont economy going in the right direction. You're hearing more and more concern about this being a double dip outside of the, for the country. I think looking at the finances in this state and the way we started making our reductions 3 years ago, and with this sort of a jobs program, that we can avoid that kind of a double dip recession if the rest of the country goes into it. I think we can do our own little, if you will, stimulus package right here in the state to address our needs, and that it'll work very well. One of the other things that I find traveling around is Brian Doobie has been doing his jobs tour, and he says he has a 10-point plan, and but he can't release it until after the primary. And I want to know what Brian Doobie's waiting for. I think Vermonters, this is definitely the top issue, and why isn't he willing to put his plan on the table? Jobs, as I say, are certainly what we're all hearing about, but there are other things, education, how you deal with health care, and that Brian Doobie isn't putting anything on the table and is using, I believe, as an excuse that there's a primary. What Brian Doobie has to say about jobs has nothing to do with the Democratic primary. What is Brian waiting for? People want to know what he stands for and what he says he's going to do to help this state. So there you go.
Can you just tell us sort of what's the total, you're good with numbers, what's the total cost of your plan?
Well, take the housing piece out first, okay, because that's borrowing 15 a year for 2 years, so there's 30 million in additional funding that you would do. We need, here's a proposal to work with VEDA, the Vermont Economic Development Authority, for them to be the bridge funding so small businesses can get money. The feds have cracked down on what banks and who banks can lend to. The issue is risk. VEDA could step in and function and take the risk that allows then the banks to lend, which is exactly what they do with larger businesses now. It's also what the housing folks do with the housing, with the affordable housing. So there's somebody who takes the risk, that opens the doors, the banks can come in and participate. So that'll open the capital. It'll take about $2 million with VEDA to get that program going. It takes to get innovation, an Office of Innovation and Intellectual Property, about $100,000 to get going, and you take that from positions that already exist. And you take about $1 million to help to ramp up the funding for the regional economic development people, and that's money that comes out of already existing programs. Community that agency's budget is about $13 million. They have, over the past 8 years, they've centralized all the positions into being governor-appointed positions in that office, and they work in Montpelier. I would totally change that structure, and I would take those dollars and put them out in the field where I think they work with